Please do not destroy smoke detectors. 请信号发射功能，充电宝等锂电池为发言。
Well, to be quite honest, I don't really remember because everything came so suddenly. I do remember reading a few things about it online, on the internet, mostly on WeChat, but I think it was like maybe right after I came back from Chongqing, and I was reading a few things, and they were talking about a virus in Wuhan, and I know Wuhan pretty well because I spent some time there. And to be quite honest, I didn't think it was that big of a deal. I thought it was just going to be pretty much just isolated to Wuhan. And then I went on vacation to the Philippines, and I remember reading about it there, and it just kept spreading and spreading over Chinese New Year, and I came back, and then it was a big deal. But even at that point, I didn't know the gravity of it at that point.
When I first heard about the pandemic, I was having my holiday. I was in Bali, Indonesia, with a friend. I thought it's scary, and it was mostly because I had no clue about how serious this is, and I was supposed to travel back to Beijing in a few days, and I had no idea about how safe that would be.
My initial thoughts towards this pandemic situation was quite different, because it was quite surreal. I remember quite well. I was in Calgary for for a conference. And by the time in the evening when I walked into this conference hall, it was located just by that corner of that street where I was staying in. Everybody was required to maintain that certain social distancing, and everybody was given a sanitizer and was advised to take all those necessary measures in order to, just like exactly if you have been carrying a flu, what would you be doing in order to protect your peers or the people around you. It was different. Certainly it was different. And it wasn't easy to completely, overcome your ongoing habits of shaking hands and having a more closer face-to-face interaction. We had to skip all that.
Hi, so my name's Kit Harford. I'm from the UK, but I've spent the last 12 or so years in China building a couple of different education businesses. And I'm currently in the countryside, as you can see, southwest England. I left China for Chinese New Year, and I was meant to go back a couple of weeks later, and instead I couldn't return, and I've been here now for a few months. So my initial reaction to the virus was one of confusion and maybe a touch of skepticism. I guess I also didn't think it could be that serious. When I first heard of it, I was reading about it in the newspaper, and the first time I had a conversation about it, I was actually in the airport to come back just before Chinese New Year. And a friend of mine asked me, I've heard about this potential virus or outbreak in China. Is anyone taking it seriously? Is it a big thing? To which I looked around in the airport and I could see almost nobody wearing masks and almost nobody doing anything different or normal. And so honestly, we had a little giggle. No, it seems fine. Yeah, I heard about it. I guess it's just the press inflating things, making it sound bigger than it really is. And people would react here if it was serious. So no, I don't think it's serious. But then maybe moving back to the UK, being here, and then obviously seeing and hearing everything that happened in Wuhan, then everyone's thinking changed rapidly and quickly, and then was really left with a sense of frustration that here in the UK we really haven't done very much. We didn't react fast enough or serious enough to control it, and seeing how seriously it was both affecting and being dealt with in Wuhan, to have my own country and people, including my parents, not take it very seriously was frustrating.
Definitely everyone took it very seriously here in China at first. At the very beginning, people were taking precautions because you could see it was going to be a big deal. By the time I reached the States, it wasn't a big deal so much there, and it actually didn't even become an issue until after I had left. So if I remember correctly, yeah, it hadn't even been called a pandemic by the time I left. So people were still just kind of like, okay, it's here, but we were being told, okay, it's not a big deal. It's going to be handled. It's just a few cases. But after I had left, it pretty much exploded in the United States. Within a matter of like a week or 2 weeks, it was a full-blown national issue, had shut everything down. As far as the difference goes, at first people were not wearing masks in the United States. I remember I went to get some masks for a friend of mine here, and the masks, they were already selling out. But at that time, I didn't know that they were selling out for a different reason. They were selling out because I think they were being shipped out, not because people locally wanted them. And I remember two of the cashiers, they were actually laughing about the fact that the masks were selling out. So I think most people back there did not take it seriously at that point. What a difference, a month or two can make.
The situation in Romania at this point is pretty good. We don't have that many cases. We spent around 2 months under lockdown, and that was very helpful. It helped a lot preventing spreading the virus. The schools are not opened, and there won't be until September. And during the lockdown period, we weren't able to get out of the house to go to the grocery store or go to the hospital without a statement given by the government. And that helped keeping people inside. Of course, there were a lot of people trying to get out of their houses, but that kept them in for a while. So the situation is pretty good at the moment. They took a lot of measurements even before we started to have cases. And yeah, at the moment is great. Everything looks like it's going back to normal. Slowly, they allowing the bars to open again, museums. You don't need that statement anymore to go out. It's prohibited to go out without a mask though, so everyone needs to wear a mask outside. If you go out without a mask, they will take some measurements about it.
What is the current situation in our country, in Canada? Well, we had the first wave, and that was terrible. We had a lot of measures in place, restrictions and closures of most of the businesses, even until now, except some of the essential businesses, they are open right now, such as grocery, or if you have to go for a quick medical checkup, so you're a walk-in clinic, which is also turning virtual, and you won't really see a lot of crowd anymore.
So we're now a few months into lockdown, and I think everyone has had enough. I think we've done a reasonable job of lockdown. Schools have been shut, pubs, restaurants, any sort of amusement has all been shut. However, you still have been able to go out and do things if you needed to. No meeting friends or family, which has been sad and a bit difficult. And I think there's been a bit of a mix. Some people have been very committed and taken it very seriously, and some people haven't. And now, a few months later, I think everyone has kind of had enough, and there's a realization that we won't totally beat the virus, and actually we really need to get back on with life, otherwise everything's going to stop forever.
Professionally, well, it affected me the same way it has affected pretty much everyone professionally. It, pretty much stopped work. I went home thinking that I was coming back here to Beijing immediately, so I bought a round-trip ticket to South Carolina, where I live, and yeah. The second half of the ticket was canceled, and pretty much I've been in some form of isolation ever since then. So professionally, haven't did a whole lot as far as like earning money, but on the other end of that, it does give you a lot of time to reflect on things and do some creative things, which I'm all about. Going forward, as far as teaching and working with students goes, online was actually becoming the way of the future, and now I think this whole pandemic is going to just push that forward. I think even once the pandemic is under control, online is going to be the way that people are going to go. That's just the nature of the business. I don't think that's such a bad thing. But as far as art goes, I think art is too much of a personable type of endeavor that you have to be there and work directly with people in order to grow and develop. So As a teacher, I can see it being, online being a good thing, but as an artist, I think it's really going to put a damper on, the development of art in young people, not to be able to see them and work with them, face to face, in person.
This whole situation had a pretty big impact on my professional life. Firstly, I'm working from home on a different time zone, and that's pretty difficult. I'm still trying to adapt, even now after 4 months. I'm 5 hours behind China, so that makes things very difficult at the moment. I'm teaching online, and I'm waking up pretty early in the morning. And teaching online in general, it's been difficult. Moving everything in an online environment, it's a challenge. It's difficult as a drama teacher to do everything, to adapt everything. But I think it's still working, but with a lot more effort.
Well, I've had a pretty difficult time professionally. At the same time, there have been some positives. So we had some exciting and aggressive plans to expand and grow our business in China. Probably goal to double the size of the company over 2020. And obviously that's completely been put on hold. However, we'd been developing some new products and some new services that have put us in quite a good place for the long term. And we've also been able to focus on a lot of internal stuff that has been helpful. And it hasn't been terminal to what we're doing. It's merely put a different twist and put back our plans. My main questions and concerns going forward are how consumer trends have changed. And I think it's still a little bit early to judge that. In my industry, the summer holidays, the kids are now having summer holidays, so it's a little bit early to tell. It's probably September before we really know how consumer habits have changed, but that's probably my main question or concern. But I feel as a company we're smaller and lighter and probably in a better place, although revenues aren't what we were hoping to do this year. Being away, I've been now away from my team directly for 5 months, and that's difficult. Both mentally tiring and difficult because simply not having the face-to-face time with people in China, where my team is, and that's difficult. And I think I'm the only one who's not there. So that's hard, and I also don't know when I could go back. And so that makes it even harder because at the moment it's not even possible to talk about those plans. So everything's up in the air. I think we've done a reasonable job, and I think things are going along okay. But it would be much better to be able to react and do this together rather than with me on the other side of the world.
Being part of, as a project manager of an immigration consultancy, World Canada, an immigration consultancy we are based in Toronto. What we do is, my job is to basically go out and interact with different clients. These could be existing or onshore within Canada clients who are looking to get a restoration of their status or change of status. I am required to interact with them face to face, so either we have an appointment at office or somewhere outside where it is easily accessible by the client, and I have to go there. A good example, I had to actually fly to Calgary to catch up with this business client who was looking to invest in Canada. So that is not happening anymore. We are quite restrained and restricted from having any sort of social interactions in open or within a close proximity or within more or within less than 6 feet or 2 meters, whatever. So certainly that is one. Second is a lot of our because of those unavoidable circumstances of not being able to interact with the clients, I am required to work online from home. So working from home is a little bit different than working closely with the client face to face at the office or anywhere else. This is completely different, and especially like even if I am able to work online, but the client is not used to, they want to feel comfortable that they are speaking or talking to the right person. In immigration, there are a lot of sensitive matters which we have to handle and talk with the client face to face and capture or collate all that information. It's certainly not easy.
Differences between life before the virus and post-virus pandemic. Well, I guess one of the biggest differences is that I am enjoying a lot of solitude at this point. You don't, as I was saying before, don't have a lot going on professionally, and work, profession is a big part of life. A lot of your acquaintances, a lot of your connections are through work because that's where you spend most of your time. Another big change, and I'm starting to get used to it, even though I still hate it, there is a difference, is wearing the mask every single day, everywhere you go, even when you go out. So much as even going to empty the garbage, I wear a mask. So that's actually quite a big change. The temperature checks, it's not a big deal, but little things like that can be a kind of an annoyance. I do worry about, things such as catching a general cold, or being out in public and having a scratchy throat and you have to cough. Everybody's going to turn and look at you like, what the hell's going on here? So it's just little things like that, but I guess you would say that's just the new normal. How have I been spending my free time? Which is quite a bit of time. Actually, it's all free time right now. Well, I have actually caught up on a few TV series that I enjoy. I just finished up one this week, but I have decided I'm not going to start a new one, at least not now. I have no excuses for, not keeping up with friends and family back home now. So I get to call home and just make small talk quite often. No excuses for not getting enough sleep, obviously. But most importantly, I've been eating better because I have an opportunity to cook for myself. And I have had, probably the most important thing is I've had a lot of time to spend in my creative endeavors, especially as far as writing goes. And while I'm getting a lot done, I'm trying to focus on upping my game as far as the quality of the writing, and it's proven to be somewhat challenging. But now I have the time really to focus on it. So a lot of time spent doing that. And actually, it feels like there's still not enough hours in a day.
My routine, it's not that different from before the pandemic. I still have the same habits. I still wake up really early in the morning. I was spending a lot of time at home before that, reading or watching movies or documentaries, cooking, and just having some rest. So from this perspective, not a lot changed. I'm trying my best to keep the same routine, so it wouldn't feel like a lot changed. At the same time, mentally, it's a little bit more challenging. Not being able to go outside every time I want to. For me, it's really helpful to just have long walks when I need to take a break from my work, and now I'm not able to do that often, and it is challenging, mostly from a mental perspective.
How has life been different post-pandemic? Certainly, it is different. Staying in isolation is different from going out, of course. And when you are in isolation, we have very limited visibility of the outside world in terms of how we go for recreation activities and stay healthy. Exercise is one of those vital aspects of life where basically you have to exercise, work out daily to keep yourself healthy. There are a lot of absolutely indispensable opportunities which we had to let go. Being in quarantine is something which makes us more responsible and more worried, because especially like within my my own isolation, how I'm spending my time within my isolation is with my kids. So I've got 2 kids. They both are infants, and I'm always concerned. So even if I have to step out for a grocery and I come back, I have to sanitize myself from head to toe. I have to make sure that I'm not carrying or bringing in anything funny. So that's how I've been dealing, and our routine has been kind of upset. It has gone drastically. It has changed from disturbed sleep and having quite a lot of question marks around our head, and just asking ourselves what's next. Just confusion all around. We don't know. We get to see news and then the change in statements from some of the biggest leaders. But again, it's not something in anyone's control at the moment when it comes down to pandemic.
So how different has my life been? Well, normally I'm an extremely social and active person. I'm normally out and about, seeing friends, doing things, exploring. And since the lockdown, I've basically just been here. I've been gardening. I'm staying with my sister and my parents. There's 5 of us. Actually, there's now 6 of us because my sister had a baby, which was very exciting. That's probably the biggest change in lockdown. My sister was meant to go into hospital about a month after lockdown started. And instead she had a home birth just in the sitting room behind me. So that's the biggest way our lives have changed. But yeah, I feel like I'm living an accelerated old person's life, where I've been gardening and reading and working and walking and not much else. It's been very simple and very contained, and it's actually been nice. I've enjoyed the pace of life.
The coronavirus, it's here to stay. The genie is out of the bottle. I mean, I think we as human beings, we evolve, we will adapt. It'll always be here, but it will be a part of our lives, and we'll just move forward with that reality.
I haven't thought that much about the future, since everything is unpredictable, and I find it pretty difficult to make plans for the future.
How do I see the future? Well, personally, I'm expecting to go back to China as soon as possible, but then maybe spend some time here and some time there. But that's not particularly clear yet, and it's unclear how easy it would be.
How do I see the future? The future looks quite blurry.